Warm welcome to our final morning coffee series session, Negotiation Tips on a Napkin. My name is Satu Alman, the founder of Saga Performance, and together with me, I have our negotiation expert, Pavel Novak. And for those who have joined us before during this series, you already know that our discussions are in a way interactive. So as we are recording, we like to keep your mics and videos off, but feel free to interact during this session on the chat. So write your questions or comments. And at the end, we're also opening the floor for questions and answers. This being the final session, it's also a good time to talk about what's next, because this is not the end of, let's say, talks around performance and also well-being, but on a different platform. So I'm going to be talking about that at the end, but now let's welcome, well, all of you first, and then also Pavel, please hit the road.
Thank you, Satu. You know, it says 8:55 is the end. So I thought
the end.
the end is coming today. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. The topic is negotiation tips on a napkin. And it actually means I selected 3 ideas that have proven helpful over the period of time. Some of you might know it because some of you have worked with me. And they are easy enough to kind of scribble on a napkin once in a restaurant, and easy to remember frameworks. And why they might be useful, let me, Satu, ask you a question to warm you up for the morning. How many dots do you see?
Whoa, I needed to unmute myself first. How many dots do I see? I see many, many dots. I'm not going to be calculating. Otherwise, it's the end pretty soon and I'm still counting the dots.
Okay, a rough estimate. Give me a number.
50, 100, anything.
Yeah, 50, 100, anything. Okay, so this is kind of the state when you're negotiating and you're at the very beginning. You see a mess, you see some dots, but you don't really see a pattern in it. And of course, once there is a pattern, it's much easier to count the dots.
Yes,
So,
I see it now.
Yeah, and the number is the same. It's just differently put together. And that's the whole point about the negotiation frameworks that I'll be presenting and showing. So if the observers, listeners have an important negotiation ahead, try and write down these 3 things and see if the structure helps you during that. You could also use it during the day, anytime, for any negotiation. So ready for the first one?
Before you hit the first one, I really like the metaphor that or the bridge you built here. And I think it's just so visible how much easier and how much more stress you're actually relieving here. Because when I was looking at the first image, I was like, whoa, calculating all this is going to take a while. And oh my God, if I tell you the wrong number of dots, and it's going to be so stressful, and all these things that gone through my head. And now I see it and I look at it in a very much more calm and content way. I'm like, okay, easy to count, easy to control, easy to give you an answer. So in a way, that's, I think, what we're all hoping for, that whenever we are in a negotiation room or a situation where we have a tough talk coming ahead of us, that we have this kind of a firm feeling that I can control my stress and I can lead the discussion the way I want to lead and convey my message in a structured way.
It creates some clarity. So number 1 is the negotiation matrix. You've clearly seen that, some of you, but it's surprising to see how many people actually do not actively use it, even though it's a simple tool. So very quickly, when negotiating, it's not only thinking about what are my benefits and what's against, but it's what are the parameters I am negotiating. And usually there's more than one. I listed 5, could be more. So to give an example, if you are negotiating a training program, or if you're buying a coaching program, you could be negotiating the scope, how much time or the length of the program. That's one parameter. Of course, you're negotiating the price, how much you're going to pay for it. The third one, it could be when you will be paying for it. Number 4 would be how many and what kind of materials are you getting. Number 5, who's the coach? Number 6, is there any certificate at the end? Number 7, is there any quality assurance? And we could go on. So the point of creating the structure in your head is trying to think and list the parameters of a negotiation that come into play. You can also notice that going down, each parameter has a maximum volume, a target level, and an acceptable minimum. And I do recommend actually writing out all these 3. If you start at the realistic expectation, then you go up, then you go through realistic, then you go down, you realize that very often the justifiable maximum is much higher than you thought, or the if you're a buyer, actually the justifiable minimum you're willing to pay. And of course,
this is, by the way, what we often see, and I've also experienced myself, that we lack the three of them, as you said, that you think about it in your head and you don't even put it on paper. Just think, okay, this is the price I'm willing to pay, and I can go max up to this. But you don't really go through this. Okay, what are the other levels? Where's the room for actual negotiation?
And I see that very often when we practice negotiation with people. I hear them say, you know, the price should be, let's say, this. When the word let's say is just giving away the fact that they haven't done the calculation. But you can do the calculation for all the areas, because guess what? If they push you on one area, you can actually compensate for the other area, in the other area. So if, for example, you are pushed for price to sell, let's say, a car at a minimum price, of course, you could request a down payment, or you could remove the extras, etc., etc. I think you get my point. The red thing is important. At which point do I stop negotiating because it's just not paying off? So it also is giving you kind of the line at which point you no longer spend, or I should say waste, your time negotiating.
Pavel, how often do you realize that people actually then still negotiate the workaway point with themselves during the negotiation?
I think it's linked with the matrix preparation itself. If they are not prepared, it's so easy for them to be negotiating with themselves. So yes, I see that.
Yeah.
But no wonder people really don't know how to prepare efficiently. So this is one thing that you can scribble in 2 minutes and try to put your thinking into categories so that it's clear. The blue-orange is a surprising parameter that the other person might not be expecting. So I think I saw a commercial for advertisement for buying a new iPhone, you know, sell your old and buy a new. So selling or getting money for your old phone might be the blue-orange to get you to the negotiation table.
That's interesting.
If you have a negotiation today, try to think about the parameters. By the way, time is always a parameter. Yeah.
So should you always prepare a blue-orange as well?
It's advisable. You don't have to, but it's advisable.
Right.
And I had a discussion yesterday about somebody talking about a legendary buyer who would always request flowers with any deal. So the blue-orange can be actually a red flower.
Yeah, a standard blue-orange. Good. Okay, let's go to the next one, as I know that time is flying.
Okay. Second one is something that has proven very beneficial once you want to understand who you are negotiating with. It's an excerpt from something called Value Proposition Canvas, and we'll be sending a link to this. It's all, it's not copyrighted, it's free share, so you'll be able to download it easily. And it's thinking about what are the customer jobs if you imagine you are dealing with a sales manager, so what does sales manager do day in, day out? If you imagine him or her spending their day, what are they doing? So this is customer jobs. And then, of course, it's about the pains. What keeps him stressed? What makes him angry? What could be the reason for unhappiness? And you could think in the 4 categories of people, processes, products, or finance, that the balance score categories could be another guiding principle. Don't have to be. It can be very personal. So this is the answer to the question, what keeps him awake at night? Mm. And the second, which is the opposite or the contrast, what is the person trying to achieve? What are their dreams? What are they hoping to get? And once you have a clear idea, you may actually select your arguments better. Because when people negotiate, they often play games and they have a position and they pretend. But kind of understanding what kind of stress they might be under and what would really be a success, it can actually help you see through that layer or that pretense.
So just to organize my thoughts in my head, so you would recommend to use this even just right before an important meeting, just to draft these things based on the knowledge that you have on the spot, or that you could also do a much more thorough analysis long-term, looking into all your customer profiles?
You could do both. You could do both, and of course it changes, right? So if you're buying a car on the 30th or 31st, the last day of the month, it would be a gain for the salesperson to sell another piece, right? But of course, there's a bigger picture. The whole year, how much the cars are selling, is everybody moving to electric? Do we have to sell the stock, etc., etc.? So the information is out there, and you can also use your kind of guides or people that you know or that know the market about the typical pains and the typical headaches and the typical gains.
Yeah, good.
So understanding the other person. That's the second napkin drawing. And the last one, and then we can hit the questions and answers, is the understanding of we have always a choice of selecting our communication style. We can either focus on satisfying ourselves, this is satisfaction of A, being assertive, or we can choose not to be assertive, or we can choose to be somewhere in the middle, or we can focus on satisfying the other counterpart. We don't care about them, we care a bit, we care a lot. And that gives us 5 styles of actually approaching the situation. So to give you an example, imagine you have a corrective review with someone who hasn't been submitting the work within the deadline. You know, it's working online during the COVID times, and from one person, you're not receiving the inputs. So if you want to be competing, you might say, I haven't received any inputs. This can't go on. From now on, all the deadlines need to be kept. Here, Satu, of course, you would say, you know, at least 50%, or at least the most important, you know, reports or whatever needs to be managed. Here, it could be, you know, I don't really care about the deadline as long as the quality is there. So notice I accommodate and I don't push the deadline. Here I can be collaborative, saying, you know, probably you have a reason why you're not submitting the work. It's important also to understand that we need it, so let's discuss how we can solve it together. And here it can be, hey, how's your new office, or how are your kids? I saw them online the other day. Yeah, so the awareness that we can choose, and there are moments when each style is appropriate and there are moments when it's inappropriate, can give you, again, some freedom in approaching a situation.
This is, I think, very interesting. And question is, how would you use it now if we're talking about napkin tactics and sort of on the fly? Maybe you can share another example from real life. How would you do a quick preparation, just like half an hour before the meeting with this one?
Well, it's a bit longer than the few minutes that we have, but you always think, is the problem simple or complex? If it's simple, probably there is a clear solution. If it's complex, you would have to be going under cooperation or this one, which is somewhere a compromise, somewhere in the middle. So the complexity, is it complex or a simple one? Is there time available or not? Do we trust the person? Is there trust or not? Is there information sharing or not? To give you an example, if we don't have time, we know we're right, and it's really important, you would adopt this style. So a few weeks back, somebody said, one of my sales guys doesn't deliver to the point that I am threatened as a sales manager. And I was like, okay, this is the card you're playing now. Because he's been trying to do this, mostly this, none of that worked. So, and it's a simple problem and there is no time to be wasted. So the answer was clear. So to answer your question, Satu, there are more parameters to take into consideration, but the tool itself is brutally simple. And again, you can find it online. The conflict styles, you can read about it, research.
Super.
And it's approachable, an easy one.
Very interesting, as said. I'm thinking now that how does the person themselves, how do we actually adapt our communication style? Because if I understand the concept and I want to act differently, but I do have my, let's say, my personality and my normal, most common way of acting. Let's say I'm a very empathetic person. How do I coach myself to move around this kind of a scale?
So the question is, first of all, do you have the skill set? So the question to ask yourself, if you're coaching yourself, in which situations I can be firm? Yeah. So you can be, maybe some people are firm with the kids. Some people are firm in the areas which they understand very well. Some people can be firm in their leisure time, during their hobby, not at work maybe. So if you know there is a situation in your life where you can exhibit this style, you could just reach out there and do the same in the new situation.
So find a pattern in a way.
Find the pattern if you have the skill set. If we really don't have that, it is about learning a new skill.
Yeah.
So here it might be asserting, argumentation, debating, holding your ground, being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And that, as we know, can be trained, resilience, right?
Yeah.
Here, it can be actually not talking all the time and not adding your 2 cents to every conversation, just letting go. Could be meditation, could be other things. So if you have the skill set, you can use it in a new situation. If you don't have it, you need to train it.
Yeah.
But most people have a pretty good skill set. The truth is also, Satu, that we have our preferred style.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and that might be a challenge then, to control that preferred style in a tough situation, because then if stress takes over, and we've been talking about this in the past, when you switch from the rest and digest nervous system mode to this kind of fight flight, random things may start happening, and you may really lose control of your negotiation if you're not prepared. So I think that's also a very valid reason why you should invest that time, even if it's just on a napkin, just for half an hour or 15 minutes before.
I think a good practice is also, you can just sit in a once we're back in restaurants, right? But you can sit in a restaurant And you can watch people, which style of communication they're using. So that's a trainable skill, so that you recognize. One thing you don't want is to be using a style that you are not aware of. So that's what you were talking about. If I can get under stress and start attacking without intention, that's where I'm in trouble.
For sure. Great. Questions and answers. So feel free. Now I'm going to keep on talking about a little bit what's happening in the future, but feel free to post your questions and comments now on the chat. And we still have 7 minutes to go approximately. So we will be happy to, or Pavel will be happy to answer your questions. So what's going to happen after this? As we said, this is the final session of this master coaching, which is part of the master coaching program, these morning coffee sessions linked to specifically negotiation and performance. We're going to move to another platform, which many of you probably have heard about, Clubhouse. Saga Performance is already there. I'm there. And what's going to happen is that you can join. There's a club called Leadership and Performance, which you're very welcome to join. If you don't have access to Clubhouse and are still wondering, why should I join? What's it all about? How can I join? I do have invites for that. If you want to, you can approach me on LinkedIn, and you just need an iPhone for that, unfortunately, and or fortunately, if you like iPhones. And then you can join sessions that are also in morning time, but also some of them in the afternoon, in the topic or under the topics of leadership and performance. There's a regular session Friday mornings, 8:25 or 8:30, about redesigning high performance cultures, for instance. What does that mean from a leadership perspective, and so on. So similar type that we've been doing here now, but the difference is it's audio only. And well, basically you can decide how active you are. If you want to join the conversation and actually be on the stage talking, you can do that. If you just want to lay back and listen, have your coffee, that's totally fine as well. So I'm hoping to see, or we are hoping to see many of you there as well. So, and of course, if you want to continue discussions around negotiations specifically and about these topics that we've covered during the morning coffee sessions here, you can reach both Pavel and myself through LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest. And we will love to chat more with you over there.
Yes, and since no questions are coming yet, I posted in the chat this one, the customer profile, where you can download this and also a list of questions that guide you.
Mariana is asking about the negotiation matrix, and she would like to use it in the future. Where can I find more information about this?
I think, Mariana, if you Google, you will find something. I surprisingly found something in an internal document for procurement for retailers. So I think it's a common knowledge, but it's not as common as the other two. And that's also maybe the reason why it can give you the advantage, because it's not widespread. Yeah. I don't have a clear kind of source which I could post. But the concept itself is quite simple. And of course, then it's useful when you exchange concessions, because of course you need to sometimes concede when the other party is playing the competing mode, for example. So just being ready for that can help.
Yeah, and play around with that. Take your screenshot right now and or just draft it on a piece of paper or a napkin, and try it out with a salary negotiation, or pretend that you're having one, and see how that goes, just in practice, you know, at home in a safe environment.
Okay.
Henrik is saying, good session, thanks. Glad to have you here, Henrik. Wish you a great day ahead over there. So anyone else, any comments, questions? Thanks, Henrik. Before we say officially recording over, and all the best to everyone, it seems that we could actually stop the official recording. And if anyone then after that wants to open their mics, you feel free to do that. We can still hang around here until 9 o'clock. Thanks for the invitation to your session. Good tips. Happy to see you again after a long time, Pavel, says Martin. Great. Thank you for the message, Martin.
Thank you, Martin. Hope things are going well. Okay, thanks. Have a good day. I'll stop the recording now.